Welcome back. This is the renderer for the model layer. Make a copy for the smoke layer. We add smokes into the force objects. We can see there are many smokes with the same name but different serial numbers. In this case, we only need to enter the same prefix plus asterisk. See, it works. The same thing is true with these instances. Next, let's set up the lighting. First, apply the skylight and the sunlight. Reduce the sampling for the moment. Switch to another render view smokes. Remember to check it to render the high-res volumes. Currently, the lighting doesn't look good. There are a few highlights, yet a large area of shadow. But this sunlight works well on the terrain, and the lighting of the terrain will be affected if we adjust it. So let's make a copy and apply it. We rotate it to get an intended look. But keep in mind, do not make these two sunlights differ too much, otherwise there will be weird and fake lighting. Rotate it a bit along the y-axis. Nice. The light source still comes from the left, but we get a better effect. Here, here, and here. There are many details of lights and shadows. Great. Let's go on. Use the terrain layer to be the mat of this layer. Here we can directly get them linked. Remove the useless mask layers and keep the lighting layers. Besides, toggle off the combined emission during testing because it really takes time. We add a shader to the smoke. The density is too high. Let's lower it. Now some smokes are sparse and some are dense, much more natural overall. But a bit too dark. Let's brighten them. Okay. Besides, we need to add firelight to imitate the illumination by lava. Pause the rendering. Get into it. Here are 6 smokes accelerated in the beginning. I just add a flame to 5 smokes and remain this one as before for some randomness. Set a display flag on it. This smoke only lasts 120 frames. We select an available frame. Solo it. OK. Logically, the smoke in the low-density areas should be illuminated more, such as the concave areas. Yet the mushroom head, like here, is usually of high density, so it'll be poorly illuminated. Alright, let's get to it. Only keep the density here. Drop down a volume blur. And set a large radius. Then drop a name node and call it flame. Merge it with the original smoke. Then add a volume visualization node. Change the color. This node is just for visualization in the viewport rather than for rendering. After being blurred, the flame field gets larger and its density becomes a bit more even. So the concave areas are illuminated, while the mushroom areas are not. Then drop an attribute wrinkle node to lower the density. Oh, sorry, it should be volume wrinkle. Now we can control the brightness with this parameter. Lower down the density scale. Well, it's still not good. We can toggle off the limit resolution. Well, the viewport cannot reflash automatically. We can switch to another panel and then back. Disable the lighting for now. We can see only in this small area the flame works well, but in most areas it doesn't. Let's check another frame. Change the color to black for better observation. Use density as the diffuse field. Still, some areas are not yet illuminated. This problem is caused by the uneven density. After blurring, the density of the sparse smoke gets lower, even disappears. Accordingly, the flame there can poorly enlighten the smoke. So we drop a volume analysis node and compute the curvature to extract the concave areas, and then mix it with the original flame. Select maximum. Now the smoke is lightened overall. But there are too many details for just one smoke. Much more the final effect. Definitely a chaotic result. Let's try a larger radius to remove some. Nice. There are 3 pairs of parameters. The first one corresponds to the left input. The second one controls the right input. The last one, the density of the mixture. Later, I'll keyframe these parameters to control the flame. The brightness is too high. Let's lower it down. Still high. We reduce the value here. Let's check it. The flame field is a bit too weak here because the blur radius is large, so a smaller radius is better here. Okay. Jump to the latter part. Well, there comes the same problem. Too many details, too chaotic. Let's bring up the radius. Try 100. 300. It looks good, just a bit too bright. Let's lower down the post add. Good. We can see there is a red edge. It's not a big deal. This shader is just for preview. Alright, let's keyframe the post add. At this frame, set it to -0.08. At the end, set it to -0.1. Then the radius, set it to 300 at the end and 50 here. Wire this node up. Okay, let me organize the nodes a bit. For the other smokes, we simply copy this chain and then modify something like the radius, the value here for a bit of difference. When the radius is 320, there is no firelight effect at the beginning. I quite like this different effect since it can bring some randomness. For the other flames, simply adjust the blur radius and the post add here for some difference. Here, I won't demonstrate it step by step. Done with them. Now we can cache them out. It'll be a long journey. Alright, let's check how the firelight comes out. I won't use the pyro shader since it's not intuitive. Let's build one manually. Drop a material builder and a pyro shader core. It has density, smoke color, emit, and emit color. That's enough for us. Then drop a surface exports. It is essentially a compute lighting node, just equipped with some other outputs. Import the density with a bind node. Drop a multiply node and then promote the input too. Name it density. Well, we cannot use this name. Revise it a bit. Okay. Promote the smoke color. Then drop a bind node and import the flame field. Type in my flame. I named a flame previously and changed it later. Drop a ramp node. It requires a float type, so set the ramp type to float. Make a copy of the ramp. Select RGB color ramp here. We won't use this displacement node, delete it. Let's set the density and the color. We can refer to the previous setting. Select black body and change it a bit. Make it closer to the color of the firelight. These are the smokes with a flame field. Assign the shader to them. Cool. Let's tweak the shader further. Brighten it a bit more. Well, the smoke seems thinner after being illuminated. We increase the density. Okay, very simple, right? Then we make some copies of the smoke shader and vary their density in order to get more variations. Then apply them. Let's render it. The smoke differs a bit after I varied the density. It becomes denser here and more sparse here and here. Smokes of different density are intermingled with each other and bring out a nice contrast. Besides, from here to the background, you may feel the smoke gets farther gradually, so a good sense of space appears. Next, let's make some variations for the flame shader. There are 15 flame smokes, so we make 15 flame shaders. Rename it. Keep in mind, when thinning a smoke, we need to lower down the brightness of the flame accordingly, because the flame shader will look brighter as we reduce the density of smoke. For the rest of the flame shaders, I directly copy the previous settings. By the way, we can set a couple of flame shaders with high brightness and a low density to gain some brighter flame. Okay, let's apply them. Render it. I got the last two wrong. Make a comparison. Okay, cool. Actually, I added so many shaders not only for a free control over each smoke, but also for a separate mask of per smoke. This way we can tweak them flexibly later. Alright, let's move on to the smoke on the terrain. Create a shader and apply it. Reduce the density a bit. We need to set a proper density in Houdini because we cannot change it in compositing. Still a bit bright. Let's dim it. Okay. Duplicate this shader. Lower down its density and bring up the brightness slightly. Apply the shader to some smokes. Then the firelights on the terrain. We'll handle them later. Let's come to the sparse smoke around the crater. Again, create a shader and apply it. Save this snap. It's too sparse to be seen. But in the rendering image, see, here it is. The density is a bit too low. We thicken it a bit. Jump into the first frame. We lower down the sampling for the time being to speed up rendering. Now it's much faster. Yet the result doesn't differ too much. It only took 1 minute. The sparse smoke is still hard to be seen, but I won't thicken it anymore. We'll deal with it later in compositing. Keep in mind that do not make it too dense and block the terrain, or it will be hard to thin it later. Make a few copies. In addition to varying their density, we can also export some mask layers here. Okay, let's apply them to those smokes. As for the export of these mask layers, I'm gonna set it later. Now all the smokes are set up, except for the sparse smoke in the air. I directly use the previous nodes. They are instanced from the smokes in the air. Here they are. We add them into the force objects. Create a shader. You see the rendering slows down greatly. Generally, Mantra spends more time in the translucent areas. Well, I think it's a bit too thick. Let's thin it a bit. Still a bit too dense, they need a bit more. Here I just assembled a few sparse smokes to slightly enhance the atmosphere, but it's already fine. Actually, it will be much cheaper and easier to add some more sparse smoke in composting. Okay, the density is proper now. Let's move on. We've made some flame smokes, but it still lacks a sense of disaster. We can see the upper part is not illuminated by lava, so let's deal with it. Here I use a sapphire light because its lighting is soft and easily integrated. Oh, I forgot to switch to auto update. Display the terrain. Move the light over there. And scale it up. Keep it away from the background smoke a bit to avoid being covered. Okay, we switch the volumes to geometries. Display the background smoke. Let's apply this light and see how it comes out. Hide them. Well, the intensity of the light is too weak. I suggest trying a large exposure first and then reduce it to figure out a proper value. "30 is too strong. 10 is too weak. Let's try 20. Okay. We can see this smoke is illuminated too much, but the smoke here and here looks good. Also, the smoke here is exposed. Actually, it's hard to get a nice result just through one light, so we'd better set the lighting separately for different areas. Let's get to it. In the Render tab of a geometry node, there is a light mask, which is to assign lights that illuminate the current geo. Yet there's no light mask in instance nodes, so let's add it manually. Search for mask. Here it is. Drop it here and hit apply. Okay. But there are many instance nodes. If we deal them one by one, it's too much work. Here, I directly use a Python script, which can do the job quickly. I won't talk about it too much. You can check the doc if interested. After selecting these instance nodes, hit this tool. Okay. Then we add the sunlight and the skylight. Here they display red, which doesn't have much impact. See, it works well. I didn't select those instance nodes. Let's do it again. Okay, done. For the sphere light, we only apply it to the background smoke. I renamed it, but the light mask here failed to update due to the bug of the script. If you want to prevent it, you can type in the path. But I prefer not, so we'd better rename the lights in advance. There are the smokes near the crater. No need to assign the sphere light to them. The light doesn't illuminate far. Actually, that's because all the smokes still generate shadows or blockage of the sphere light. So we need to set the shadow mask of this light. Add the background smoke only. Let's render it. Great! We can see the light works better now, like here. Let's set a firelight color. Cool.